What's up, guys? Back for another great episode of the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Once again, my name is Brett Lauren, the host. You can find me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm on Spotify and YouTube. Please subscribe when you get a chance and a 5-star rating if that's available. That'd be awesome if you could. It would help the show out a lot. My guest today is Annie from OD on Sports. As we go into The Last Dance, our thoughts about it, everything Michael Jordan, the Bulls, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, Rodman, you name it. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Let me know what you think. Want to hear your comments and feedback. Once again, at Too Tall Sports Podcast everywhere. Instagram, hit me up. Let's get it. All right. Welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. A new podcast buddy, OD on Sports. That's Annie. She's definitely one of the better sports podcasters in the industry that I've run into in my short podcast career. So happy to have her on the show. How you doing, Annie?
I'm doing well. I'm blushing over here. Thank you. I'm so flattered.
Okay. Hey, it's a pleasure to have you on. So just a little background. I met Annie networking through the podcast community, and she knows her stuff on sports. So I wanted to bring her on so we could kind of go into The Last Dance and talk about episodes 7 and 8 and just the overall feeling of the series so far. I guess to start off, what are your thoughts on The Last Dance?
I absolutely love it. I'm hooked every week. I think we've talked about this before, but I was born in the early 90s, so I was too young to remember, for one, the whole season this is documented, but mostly Jordan's career with the Bulls. So getting to watch this through and also the little tidbits of information highlighting each player differently. I am loving it, especially without sports going on right now. It's something for all of us to look forward to each week, but I'm loving it. I think I'm going to be really sad next week when it's all over and we just have to watch reruns for the rest of the
I know these are the only classic games that I want to watch is the Jordan games, but like all the other classic games, I don't really care about. So I guess if we're looking at 7 and 8, the ones that just aired the other day, it's where Jordan first retires after the 93 season. There's a lot of speculation on kind of what happened and why. He was at the height of his career, but people were floating out things like he was being suspended for gambling and it was connected to his father's death, which is tough. I don't know. What did you think about the first time he retired?
To me, it sounded like he was really just truly at peace with, and going to play professional baseball is something he's always wanted to do. And he's won 3 championships, and he and his dad, he talks about, even his brother said on episode 7 that, hey, he's always talked about going to play professional baseball. He wanted to play baseball before he wanted to play basketball. So, obviously, I can't even imagine going through what he did with it, losing his father the way he did. But he did seem very at peace with his decision to leave the game. And he said it in the press conference. He said, hey, and the best thing is if I want to come back, I can. But right now, I need to step away and give this baseball thing a try.
Totally. And I thought I had, you never really know about, because he did have a gambling, I guess, issue, but the one guy on there said it perfectly. He was like, why would David Stern take his number one asset off the court in his prime and tell him to go away for a gambling suspension? And it doesn't make sense at all, business-wise either.
Not at all. If you're a commissioner, you're thinking, for one, if you're a commissioner you work for the owners, and the owners are all about making that profit. And you know how much money Michael Jordan is funneling into the NBA in the 90s? No way.
No, I agree too. And then to try to reach and say his father was connected somehow, and that's why how the father got killed, and that was pretty. I could see Michael stepping away because there's just too much going on at that point.
Absolutely. And when you've got a star of Michael's magnitude, and of course, obviously, we get it. Things like that. Unfortunately, what happened in North Carolina do tend to happen. Not tend to happen, but happen every now and then. And the fact that it happened to be the biggest athlete in the world's father is, what are the odds of that? So people are the conspiracy theorists are going to reach and try to create a story where there's not. And the media was really unfair, I thought, to Michael. They were just dragging him and trying to get a story where they could. And it was just, while he's grieving his father, that was Bush League to me.
Yeah, totally. And I think the perception changed a little bit on Michael, at least because he doesn't really talk. So to me, hearing him talk is like, not to make him more than anybody else, but it was like hearing a god talk. Like, it's weird to hear. Finally, we get to hear from him instead of people just talking for him over the years. And it's good to hear his perspective on how insane the media was back then for him.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, even you see, he's very blunt in his interviews too, alongside each story, each reaction to a player interview. He tells you exactly what he's thinking. Hell, he even has his cigar, and I think he's probably got whiskey next to it in some of those interviews. Like, it's very authentic, which I think is what makes this documentary so even better than it already is.
Totally. So yeah, after everything kind of settles down, he decides to go play baseball. And he goes straight to Double-A, which most people don't do. If you saw the documentary, it's very tough to just go from not even being drafted out of college or high school and just go straight to Double-A. I know from experience. I played in the same league that Michael played in, the Southern League. I was in Mobile, and he got to play in Birmingham. And the media there wasn't enough room for the media to cover him, so he had to go straight to Double-A. But he kind of held his own in the beginning, and they said started with a 13-game hitting streak, which is impressive for someone that hasn't played in 15 years. But then he started to struggle a little bit once the league kind of found out like kind of his swing and knew who he was. And I guess that's baseball for you. But what did you think about him actually playing baseball in that whole circus?
I mean, I think when I think a lot of athletes, I mean, with all due respect, I know you played baseball, but a lot of athletes kind of turn their nose up to baseball and kind of say, oh, it's for one. So I've heard people say it's not really a sport, but two, like, you don't really need to be athletic to play the game, which Michael, if anything, this totally busts that rumor, because Michael had to, for one, learn, not that he hadn't played he played the sport, I think he stopped in high school, but he even said himself, he said he had to train his body, and he had to take his body from being a basketball player to a baseball player. And he even found, like you said, that once the league figured out his weaknesses, he had to adapt to that. And he's put in the same I almost said mama mentality, but he had the same mentality.
On our shows, mama mentality is allowed.
He had to take the same mentality he had playing basketball into baseball, which is why he arrived early for batting practice. He stayed after practice. He kept working till he was probably not the best guy on the field, but up there with them as well.
Yeah. Now, some of them were saying he could have made it to the big leagues. Maybe just by the name, but honestly, I don't know. I don't think he would have been able to stay at the big league level. Just, maybe he hits, instead of 202, he hits 240 at some point. I just didn't see him making it, but you never know. He was the greatest athlete ever, and maybe he does have that gear where he can figure it out. But baseball is definitely hard. So at least it showed, like, you can't just show up and play baseball. Like you were saying, it is a real sport, and it's tough to play.
Right, exactly. I'll take your word for that. You have firsthand experience.
And look, I was a pitcher. I didn't really hit, so hitting is hard. Like, there's no other way around it. Hitting is hard. So to not play for 13 to 15 years and just start hitting again at that level where all the prospects are in Double-A, it's going to be tough. So.
I mean, you got Tim Tebow now still trying to play, trying to reach the Mets starting lineup.
Don't get me started on that. Yeah.
Oh God! Wait, should we get?
I have a whole nother rant about that, and it's kind of, I guess, the way I say it about Michael's fine, but to me, I don't like that Tebow's playing in the minors. It's kind of a similar thing, actually, so I guess I should be okay with it, but I think he's taking a spot away from somebody that should be there. But, like, I don't know, when I saw Tebow try out the first time, it was like watching a movie actor trying to play a baseball player in a movie. Like, it just doesn't look right. So I don't know. At least I feel like Jordan's a little better than Tebow, but they're probably both about the same anyway. So.
I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, he still has his job with the SEC network, during college football season. And then he goes and gets ready for spring training. It's still very, very odd to me.
So Michael decides to play baseball, and then all of a sudden there's a strike in Major League Baseball. And so Jordan has a decision to make. does he wait it out? And he wouldn't be one of the replacement players. So does he wait it out and wait till the season comes back where all the other stars came back? Or does he find his way back to basketball? And he saw BJ Armstrong and he said, hey, come practice with us and play one-on-one with me or something. He does it. He starts to get the mojo back, and now it's a real thing. And a few weeks later, Jordan's back. What do you think about the timing of the strike in baseball and how it affected Jordan playing basketball?
If anything, it proves that, everything happens for a reason. What's the cliche basic saying? If you love something, let it go. And if it's meant for you, it'll come back to you, kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, maybe he just, he even said it. You win 3 straight championships. He went and played on the Dream Team in '92. He was obviously suffering the loss of his father. Maybe he just needed to step away from the game, especially when his dad was so involved in his basketball career. And emotionally, it must have been, I can't even imagine how hard it would have been showing up to the court every day or going to a game and knowing that your dad's not there. I mean, even that the game on Father's Day in 96? Was it 96? Yeah, it was 96. I mean, you saw how he talked about how emotional he felt. And obviously the loss of his father hit him very hard. So maybe he just needed to step away from the game for a little bit, give the baseball thing a try, and the universe said, hey, we'll put the game on strike. You had your time. Let's go back and win 3 more rings.
Yeah, exactly. And then he comes back, and he's not exactly in the right shape. He was in, as they say, baseball shape. So he couldn't save their season. They lose to Orlando. His buddy Horace Grant's over there. Is a big moment for him to go finally against, it seems like when people left the Bulls, they always wanted to get their revenge against them, like him, BJ Armstrong, all those guys. And Orlando didn't even win the title that year. The Rockets ended up winning 2 in a row while Jordan was gone. So he couldn't save them, but that 96 season, then things started to turn. So what do you think about the way it started and the training camp and everything, how motivated Jordan was?
I mean, that man was guns a-blazing. You could tell that man had the Orlando Magic on his mind that entire summer. And this is, one of the things that I just love about this documentary, being, I'm sure you can relate as a Kobe Bryant fan, is just seeing the similarities between the two. Where, I'll be honest, I didn't know Michael Jordan that well, as an athlete, as a person, what have you, before watching this. And, constantly you hear the comparisons, mostly nowadays between MJ and LeBron, but I fully remember the MJ and Kobe debate. And the majority of the time, there's little things, they're basically the same person.
He's filming Space Jam, and then he's getting all those dudes like Reggie Miller, Juwan Howard, all those guys to play pickup games in the summer. And even though he was just doing it to get in shape, he was watching their games and kind of seeing where everybody was now that he's back in the league after his 2-year layoff, just to kind of see, all right, can I still play with these guys? And hey, when I'm ready to see these guys down the road, I'm going to know what their tendencies are too. So I thought that was interesting, how filming all day and lifting and playing pickup ball, and he was getting ready for his championship run.
Absolutely. Honestly, if anything, I get it. Guys practice with each other in the off season, but what are these guys doing? I'm like, they got to know Michael is taking notes and studying them. I would have been more skeptical as a player, but like I said, the off season, there's got plenty of guys from other teams that mix and mingle and practice with each other. So I get why they were sort of relaxed, but it ended up playing in Jordan's favor, obviously. And the Space Jam part was probably my favorite. Just seeing all the guys, the green screen and all the guys in green playing around him. I was like, that's supposed to be the Monstars, but okay.
Yeah. It's cool to see how a movie is made. You never see that part, you just get to see the fun part. So it was cool to see how he was, part of that. And he wasn't a media, showy guy at all, but it was an iconic movie, if you want to call it that, for that time.
For that time, it's still iconic.
So we get to the 96 training camp, and a couple new guys come in. One of them is Steve Kerr. And I think Jordan wants to set the tone early, and he wants to make sure these guys aren't just kind of riding the gravy train of the first 3 rings, the three-peat that they had. And he gets into it with Steve Kerr. And Phil was calling fouls on Michael because, they were going back and forth. They were guarding each other. And Steve Kerr finally snapped and had enough and punched him in the chest. And then, as most of you saw in the episode, Jordan punched him back in the face. and Phil threw him out of practice. At least he admitted, he felt like shit about it. But I guess that was such a mentality then coming into that 96 season. It was go time for those guys.
Absolutely. And I think, honestly, Steve Kerr, the way Steve Kerr describes it, it was honestly, he established so much respect for Michael during that incident where Michael, he wasn't going to take shit from Michael. I'm sure you're the greatest basketball player, greatest athlete in the entire world at the moment, but you don't get to throw people around like that. He's not going to take that shit. So respect to Steve Kerr for doing that and setting the tone. He even said from then on, Michael definitely respected him, had more admiration for him coming into the season because so many guys are coming on. You're coming on to the Chicago Bulls. You think you can ride that championship high when you weren't really a part of it. You could tell Michael did not like that.
No, not at all. Did you consider Jordan bully-ish, or do you think this is the way it's got to be? This is the Jordan and Phil Jackson and Bulls way. This is how we are. We're going to have to be like this to win.
I feel like when you're an athlete like Michael and you've got all that pressure on the weight of the world on your shoulders, essentially, and I feel like there's athletes that have that mentality of just constant work and motivation to just, if you don't enter the scene, he even said, hard work starts with hard work, ends in champagne is one of the lines from actually those episodes. He even said, if you're not, it is a failure if you don't end with a championship. So, for guys like that, when you see guys joking around, not taking things too seriously in a practice, it's frustrating. So I can understand. I sympathize with Michael in that regard. And obviously was times of crossing the line, like punching Steve Kerr in the face, probably not good. But at the end of the day, they got 6 rings, and I don't want to say bullying works, but I don't like the word bullying.
Yeah, I don't either. It makes him sound like a villain, or he's, always putting dudes down. He was tough on guys, but I think he knew the level that they needed to get to win a championship. So he wasn't going to waste his time coming back to the NBA for anything but a ring.
Absolutely. And guys even said, Michael was hard on you. Michael pushed you, but Michael would never ask you to do something that he wouldn't do himself. So he was holding the guys accountable because he knew where this team could go and what they could get to, but he was never asking them to do anything outrageous.
No, he was just asking them to practice hard with it. Every day is going to be intense, and we're going to stay after. We're going to get shots up as much as possible. He knew what he had to pull out of guys the best he could. And that year they went 72-10, and you could argue most would say that's the best team ever assembled in the NBA. In your opinion, do you think that's the best team ever?
I'm trying to put my Lakers fandom aside, but yes.
Me too. Better than the 2000 to 2002 Lakers?
Yes, absolutely. It's very hard, but yeah, I do think that Bulls team is the best to ever do it. No disrespect to Steph Curry and the 2016 Warriors, but I got to give it to the.
Yeah, I'm with you. And yeah, for the new generation, those Warriors teams a couple years ago were amazing. And the 73-9 team, it's comparable, but I think defensively is where the Bulls take over, especially when Rodman came and him and Pippen and Jordan were all first team, second team, all defense, whatever they were. Yeah, I think that's what separated those. They didn't lose a game, like they were saying to Judd Bushler on the plane with Scotty. He's looking at this calendar, the schedule. He's like, I don't think we're going to lose a game for 3 months, which is insane.
It's crazy. I don't see – it's maybe a couple years ago in the NBA, but nowadays with the powers so divided amongst teams, it's hard to see a team saying, hey, we're not going to lose a game for 3 months. Back in the day, 3 years ago when you knew the finals were going to be the Warriors and the Cavs, I could maybe, but now it's just not something you see anymore.
No, definitely not. So after they get their revenge on Orlando at the end of 96, and then they go to the finals and they meet the Seattle Supersonics, RIP for now. What do you think of that? For now. Hopefully, I'm hoping there's a team comes back to Seattle. That's a fun market. There's a lot of good basketball players from there.
They're getting a hockey team in a whole new arena in 2 years. Might as well.
Might as well. I agree. What do you remember about those Sonics teams? Or I know you're a little younger, but not too much younger. Do you remember those Sonics teams?
Not really. No, I gotta be honest. I remember the jerseys, and that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, totally. No, I don't think they get enough credit. That they were good. Gary Payton was great. Sean Kemp, the Rain Man, like damn. And George Karl has been a successful coach in the league for a long time. And they were good, but they weren't clearly not on the Bulls level. So, obviously they got a couple games, and Gary Payton took upon himself to guard Michael, but it wouldn't have mattered. Michael was at as good of his level of game as he's ever been.
Why you don't put the defensive player of the year on Michael for the first 3 games is
good question.
Me, but I understand the wanting saying, "Hey, we need more offense. We need more points scored. Let's move you off Michael." But how are you? I can't.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I think George Karl maybe wanted to do it his way, and then Gary Payton's like, no, let me get a shot at him. And they did win 2 games, and Michael didn't shoot that well, I don't think, early on in the series. So I think, all right, I'll give him his credit, but you're not stopping the best player of all time who is motivated to win a championship too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And going back to, how about the part when Michael got emotional about the way he plays? And he was like, look, if you don't play this way, then you can't be here, basically. And then it got to him. Like, people have always criticized his way. So what did you think about that?
It was hard to see, because at the end of the day, I mean, the man doesn't really have any defending to do. He shouldn't have to prove anything to anybody. He's got 6 rings. So obviously it would be one thing if he was this jerk and he wasn't winning. The team was shit. They weren't winning games. He's got no rings to his name. But the proof was there. He made guys around him great. And the fact that he's criticized for this, I mean, even guys to this day are saying stuff about him. And I can see where he could get emotional. I do. And maybe it's just kind of the way he is. So there's no, like I said before, guys of that higher caliber sometimes have a hard time sympathizing with people that don't do things the way they do, and why wouldn't you want to be great? Why wouldn't you want to put in this extra work? So maybe that's why, but it was the last time I saw him that vulnerable was the Kobe Memorial. So it's always very eye-opening and kind of heartwarming in a sense to see these guys that are larger than life, like poster children for masculinity, and you see them getting emotional over this kind of stuff.
I have to say, 2020, as bad of a year as it's been, at least we finally got to see what Michael's like, after all these years.
It's so true, though. Honestly, I mean, obviously, fuck 2020, but sorry for cursing on your podcast.
No, hey, you're allowed. We're not on a live show.
Okay.
This isn't cable enough. TV.
But, I mean, it's so many. I mean, this documentary is it's kind of brought up a lot of old stories, like the whole Isaiah Thomas thing. I'm done. Get over it, move on. Either own the bad boy persona or, step to the side. Stop going on First Take. We're done hearing about you.
Totally agree.
Thank you. It's and it also puts to rest all the rumors that Michael was the guy that kept Isaiah Thomas off the team, when in reality, no, there were a lot of guys that didn't like him on that 92 team. So it's not fair to put the entire blame on Michael. And he carried that weight for 28 years now?
Yeah.
Obviously the Kobe episode was very emotional, just seeing that relationship kind of where it started to flourish a little bit during that All-Star game in New York. But yeah, exactly. Like you said, we were just really getting a deep dive into Michael, his family. There's Tribune reporters on things that they covered with him. I'm very, very intrigued to see, because all the time they're in everything they're talking about, there's no backstabbing going on. There's no, things surrounding the general manager. So I'm excited to see how this whole documentary closes out next week.
No, I'm with you. And you know what? In the beginning, first 2 episodes, everyone hated Jerry Krause, right? He's the villain in this whole thing. But honestly, to put 2 different three-peats together, I'm going to give Jerry Krause a little bit of credit and that's what he wanted the whole time, right? That's what he wanted.
Is it a coincidence that looks like the alien boss in Space Jam?
He's Danny DeVito. Yeah, that's true. He kind of is.
They're similar. I mean, he's not alive to defend himself during this thing, which I do feel, you kind of feel bad about, but his family's kind of going to be around to pick up whatever flack comes his way. But it's just the dynamics and so much. I mean, with any sports team, with any dynasty, there's going to be behind the scenes stuff that we don't normally see. And I mean, everything. I mean, so much stuff with Scottie Pippen too that I didn't know about. I knew about obviously him getting pissed about the contract, but then him just giving up on the team.
How about twice? He did it twice. How about when he chose to get the surgery later to start the year instead of in the summertime? And then the sit-out game, like what the hell? So it's not really making Scottie look very good.
It's not. And, I mean, the surgery thing, I thought that was just selfish. I mean, and then you all even he comes back that night, opening night the next season. He's like, I didn't know if I would see them all, so I wanted to address them all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Scottie has not made himself look very good in this documentary. Now, he did sign the contract, though, the 7-year, $18 million deal. And, that was before they won the three-peat and all that stuff. He was definitely undervalued, no question there. But they honestly, I think when Michael left and after the third championship, they should have restructured Scottie's contract because he deserved to be well paid after that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, but that's also, there's guys, it's hard to feel sorry. Like you said, he signed the contract. That's the money he took. I get it. There's athletes now that are severely underpaid compared to their contributions to their team. But it doesn't – I just don't – I don't like the idea of withholding surgery so you're back on the court. I don't get them. I don't get the –
and that was a bad look when the last episode when he sat out and he didn't want to be the one to pass the ball in and Kukoc took the last shot, even though Kukoc had made game winners earlier in the year. Like it's not out of the realm for him to get the ball at the end of the game. So I thought that was extremely selfish.
That was bullshit.
It was bullshit. Right.
I was, Phil, and it's Phil Jackson. He's not disrespecting Scottie, and that's how Scottie was his ego was so fragile that he had to see it as disrespectful to himself when in the end Phil just wanted to win the basketball game.
Yeah.
So and then after, of course, when you could definitely tell, which as much as we're talking about there's hate on Scottie, you could tell he said, if I could do it over again, I think I feel bad, but if I could do it over again, I don't think I would. I was like,
I don't get Scottie's he's not looking too good in this series. But he was a great player, no question. Like he's severely underrated, underpaid, the whole deal. And Michael didn't win any championships without him, so you have to give him that at least.
Agreed. If any, Michael said in the first episode, he says none of this happens without Scottie Pippen. You don't have 6 rings without Scottie Pippen, and also you don't have 3 rings without Dennis Rodman, who Michael flies to Vegas and he yanks out of bed.
That whole thing,
Chicago.
That was crazy. The whole Dennis Rodman dynamic was insane. They bring him in after he was hated on the Pistons, part of the bad boys, and they finally get him in there, and now he's accepted, and they're letting him be him. But it's nobody else could just leave midway through the season and go on a Vegas trip for 5 days or however long he was gone, except for if you're the best rebounder of all time. So.
Absolutely not. And nowadays with the league now, you've got these load management, everyone giving Kawhi a hard time for taking days off. It also is a reflection of how great Phil Jackson was as a coach, managing all these personalities. The fact that Dennis Rodman walks into the office and he's like, I need a vacation. And Phil's like, he needs a vacation. What coach nowadays would say if someone walks in and goes, I need a vacation, he'd be like, so do I. Get your ass back on the court. Exactly.
Especially, and if you're a shitty team and you're not going anywhere, it's one thing. But you're probably going to be in the finals this year. Like, you can't just leave. Like, we got a legitimate shot here. You can't just disappear when we need you.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that they seem to be okay with it. Like I just don't understand. There's
Yeah, totally. And
I guess it was just the way he was, and like, you know, gotta let Dennis do what he does, and you know, that was a funny thing. And then he comes back to practice, and they're doing what
the Indian run
they call it, the Indian run, yeah. And Dennis slaps him. He comes back like he didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, no, it's insane. His motor was incredible. Like, how can you just party all night long and be totally fine for practice the next day? I'll never understand that.
I could probably do that like in college. Nowadays, no.
Right, exactly. And the other thing with Dennis, he didn't like fit the mold either. Like, I know we've talked about this before. Like Scotty and Michael and Ron Harper, they wore like nice suits every single game. Like they were well dressed. Like it was a business of like elite professionals. And it was coming out of that era, the bad boys, you know, the NBA was kind of had like the black eye from that era. And now it's like, no, we're going to look sharp. We're going to be, it's a business trip everywhere we go. And Dennis is the complete opposite of that. And he still found a way to fit in, and they accepted him.
You know, I respect it, honestly. And if you're going to dress like that, you're going to have, like, it would be one thing if you were riding the bench the entire game, not really making an impact, and you're acting like that. But you know what? Dennis did the talking on the court. He can do what he wants. And I guess that's why they let him dress the way he wanted to and let him go to Vegas.
Crazy. Exactly. Yeah. If you're that good, you can do whatever you want.
I mean, I'm very sad it's going to end. I feel like they stuffed so much into just 10 episodes where, you know, a lot of people said it was really confusing how they kind of bounced. They followed the 97-98 season, but then they were like, okay, let's go to 91. Let's go 92. All right, we're going back. And then here and then back. But I thought it was really well done. I hope this isn't the last. I know they've got to have filmed more other teams. I mean, this can't be the only team they've got hiding in that whatever vault they have in Secaucus. So I want more of these things. Although I know we talked about this, but there's that rumor going around that they filmed Kobe's last season. I'm not ready for a documentary on Kobe's last season.
Me neither. It's way too soon.
Way too soon. We're still healing. We need time, especially with basketball possibly not happening this year for 2020 when, let's be real, it was as good as ours this year. So which that would have been the perfect way for us to kind of come together and heal after this horrible year. But
well, LeBron doesn't have that much time left either. So, you know, he wants to play because we as the Laker fans have a good shot at it. You know, we got AD. We want to make sure he re-signs. There's a lot of stuff, you know, hanging in the balance right now.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I think it's Jared Dudley that's doing so, and he's a part of working with Adam Silver to get something resolved, to get an NBA season going. Obviously, there's concerns going with health, making sure that, you know, players, staff, coaching, everyone's getting tested. What's the plan if, you know, keeping everybody healthy, keeping everyone safe, but also what happens if someone does get sick? And not only that, but like, are you going to quarantine the players? You think about if you're going to quarantine them in hotels, well, there's hotel staff. There's other people you come into contact with these guys, you know. It's a lot of moving parts. I hope they can come to a resolution, but it wouldn't shock me if it's not, which is so upsetting. But back to your original question. You're talking about The Last Dance, and I tie it to the Lakers naturally. I'm honestly just the idea that Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson that said, hey, I don't care if you win the championship, what happens, you're not returning as head coach of the Chicago Bulls. This is your last season.
That's insane, by the way.
It is. And the fact that Michael said, I'm not coming back. If Phil leaves, I leave. And I know Jerry's not alive to talk to us about, to, you know, give a recent interview about it, but you know what, and then Phil goes to the Lakers, and we obviously know what happens there.
Best thing that could have happened to us.
It's just what? Absolutely. I need to know about how. We obviously know how it ends, but I'm excited to see interviews and, reactions to the whole, well, now we're at 6. Is Phil really gone? Is Michael really gone for good now? That's what I'm just kind of closing this chapter. And also, I need actually, maybe I'll hold off on that thought. No, I'm not going to hold off on that thought. There's got to be the MJ LeBron comparisons need to stop. So I'm hoping there's some other little jab in there to just silence the 3 and 6. I'm all for.
I completely agree with you. Even though LeBron is on the Lakers, I am always. We all needed to see this to remind all the young kids, hey, there's a dude not named MJ or not named LeBron, not named Kobe that was truly the best ever. So I needed to see it too. I was just a young kid, I was only, between 8 and 12 years old. I don't remember a lot of these games. So it's a good reminder for the sports world how great he was.
Absolutely. And I mean, if anything, it teaches us that you can appreciate greatness regardless of the era, regardless of the person. Because how often do you get to see a guy like Michael Jordan, like Kobe Bryant, like LeBron James play the game of basketball? It's not often you get an athlete that's overall and all around just elite. And just pitting them against each other and comparing them all the time. Like these guys, even Kobe said it in his interview. He said, there's no Kobe Bryant. There's no 5 rings without Michael Jordan. You don't get me without him. And guys, all the stars say that about Kobe Bryant because, like you and I, Kobe was their MJ. So it's that, I don't know, I hate, and that's why these shows like First Take and what's Undisputed with Skip and Shannon, do you have to tie LeBron into everything that's going on? How about just enjoy the documentary? Just take in what's going on and relish the fact that, hey, Michael gave us the go-ahead to watch all this and is opening up stuff that he doesn't have to. He doesn't owe us anything. And he's letting people come into his home, opening up about some arguably the best but also lowest points of his life. I leave LeBron out of it. That's all I gotta say. LeBron's enjoying watching this.
Which is good because everyone should be appreciating what this is like. Like I said, it's like Jordan is at a totally different level than anybody else. Like every part of his game, a lot of people say he has no flaws. He just didn't. It was like watching poetry in motion. He was that good and that smooth, and his IQ was high. It was just everything about his game was perfect. So
right.
He was his own worst enemy. No one could stop him.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I think we definitely were able to break down episodes 7 and 8 and the whole series. So excited for 9 and 10. And we'll definitely have some more episodes with Annie down the road. Once again, at OD on Sports. She's here to talk. She's a huge Dodger fan. Hopefully we get baseball back so we can talk about that. And
absolutely.
Right? We need some more of that.
Absolutely.
And this is the Dodgers year. This is the Dodgers year.
Yes, it is. I was excited for a Lakers championship and a Dodgers World Series.
Oh.
Speaking it into existence, and of course, it gets derailed. But I'm, obviously with all the talks going on with baseball right now and between the owners and the Players Association, but I'm holding hope that we get this game going, even if it's without fans, even if I don't get a Dodger dog until 2021. As long as I can watch them on TV and as long as people are safe. Let's play ball.
That's a great way to end it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Annie. And once again, at OD on Sports, at Too Tall Sports Podcast. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.